Everybody gets stuck sometimes. Being stuck can be just feelings of apathy, being controlled by your fear. You don't really need bars to feel imprisoned. And so I've been reading Nehemiah, which is a story about the children of God in history in Israel coming out of captivity in Babylon. And so this is a story of God's people in history getting unstuck. And so if we don't want to repeat history, this is a lesson book for all believers today, how we can avoid getting stuck or come out of periods of apathy or being controlled by fear, whatever is imprisoning us. Lots of times these are self-imposed restrictions we place on ourselves that Christ has already set us free from. And so I want to read a quote to you. I can easily reckon a day or two what builders have taken years to do. Let me read to you Nehemiah 1, 3, and 4. It says this, "And they said to me, the remnant there in the province who had survived the exiles in great trouble and shame, the wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates are destroyed by fire. As soon as I heard these words, I sat down and wept and mourned for days, and I continued fasting and praying before the God of heaven." So here we see Nehemiah finding news that the Jews that had survived are living in rubble. They're living in shame. The once glorious pride of Israel is now something that is just a byword among the people that pass by. And so you see Nehemiah's response here. He can't control the events that have already taken place, but this is something we can learn from Nehemiah is we control our responses, and that has a great effect on the outcomes we have in life. So you'll later see in Nehemiah what his outcomes are, but let's just focus on his response here. In verse 4 it says, he sat down and wept. He sat down and wept, and it also says that he mourned for days. Mourned for days. And this isn't because of something that happened to him, it's something that happened to his people. So what does this reveal about Nehemiah? It reveals how much he cares for other people, especially his people, the Israelites. It shows us the true definition of passion, which is what we're willing to suffer for. Lots of times in modern culture, we think of passion as what makes me feel most alive, but passion really is what you're willing to suffer for. If you had to pay a cost for it, what would you be willing to continue through because of your passion? It's March Madness right now, and you definitely see this in basketball coaches. One thing I've enjoyed about being a coach over the years is coaches never lack passion. I'm also a teacher. Now, teachers are notorious for finding ways to just go through the motions because students don't always love being at school, but they look forward to going to practice. So coaches don't have to deal with apathy necessarily as much as teachers do. And so sometimes the students can rub off on the teachers, and they can get apathetic and lose their passion and not really be willing to suffer the kids' apathy or rebellion or whatever the case may be. But as I see these coaches during March Madness, they're willing to lose sleep and do whatever it takes because they have this deep drive, whether it be to win or for power or for pleasure, or it's really their purpose. They have a deep drive that helps them overcome whatever difficulties come their way. They're pretty much the opposite of stuck. So passion is what you're willing to suffer for. And often life's greatest difficulties will show you your true character, and they will bring out your true genius. People say that pressure creates diamonds, but pressure only creates diamonds if we're willing to do the inner work, to begin within, as Brian Knight says on his podcast, the Focus 3 podcast. We have to begin within and do that hard soul work. We have to explore the inner labyrinth of who we are inside before we control the external stuff outside. So yeah, Nehemiah did an amazing thing in rebuilding the wall in Jerusalem with people who were pretty apathetic. But it all started because he did the begin within work. He was personally affected, as evidenced by him weeping and mourning for days. And it goes on to say, and I continued fasting and praying before the God of heaven. So not only did he go inward and examine, He went outward up to God, because God can do more in just a few minutes than we can do in a few lifetimes. And so Nehemiah is willing to recognize that, and that's why he's able to accomplish things externally. He's willing to do the internal work. So if you're feeling stuck, if you're trying to build a life that lasts, that affects your kids or your coworkers or your friends, you need to begin within, the same way that Nehemiah did. He let the circumstances around him not drive him to despair, but he had a proper buoyancy, a buoyancy that gave him weight, but it also drew him upwards. And that's what the gospel of Jesus Christ does. It gives us that weight that, yes, we are sinful. Yes, we are creatures. We are not creators. We are not God. That draws us down. But it also draws us up, that we are created with God's image, and we have a buoyancy about us. So we're neither superficial nor puddleglum. We're neither Tigger nor Eeyore. We are sorrowful yet ever rejoicing. And because of that, God can use us to accomplish what may seem impossible without his intervention. So am I a builder who works with care, measuring life by rule and square? Am I shaping my work to a well-made plan, patiently doing the best I can? Or am I a wrecker who walks to town content with the labor of tearing down? So are you a builder or a wrecker? Are you someone who's accomplishing things that will last, or tearing down stuff for a temporary feel-good? So I'll end with a quote from, I believe his name is C.T. Studd. He said, "Only one life, 'twill soon be past. Only what's done for Christ will last."